What have you seen from Darius and you know his ability to run that Arkansas offense?
Um, Elite talent, elite basketball IQ, elite passer, tough. Um, I haven't seen all the point guards, so I'm not going to sit here and say stuff I don't know, but he's as good as any point guard I've seen. He just makes everything easier. He gets guys shots. He knows when to go. He knows when to um, change speeds. And the biggest separator for him is his ability to make threes. There's a lot of point guards can do everything but shoot. Um, he does it all, um, and he's tough, competitive. I've just been really impressed with him.
Thank you, Chris. We'll go to Joseph Duarte from the Houston Chronicle. Joseph, please go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Kelvin.
Good morning.
Kelvin, I wanted to ask you about your relationship with Cal, and if I'm not mistaken, when he took the Arkansas job, he mentioned conversations that you and him had, and just that friendship that you guys have had throughout the years, and a lot of basketball.
Um, yeah, but a key thing you said there was the years. Um, I I've known Cal a long time. He might can pinpoint when it started better than I could. But I mean, I remember all the way back to we went on a I'm not sure he'd remember this, but we went on a foreign tour. What year was that? Um, can't remember. But John came in and watched practice uh, for a day or so, and meetings, stuff like that. Um, but I remember Cal from the five. I didn't know him then. I remember him from Five Star days when at Pittsburgh. I know he's a Pittsburgh guy. He actually played in the same conference. There's four old guys that played in the same conference, not at the same time, but in the same NAIA District 26. Cal was at UNC Wilmington. Tubby was at High Point. Rick was at Lenore Ryan, and I was at Pembroke. And um, kind of where we all got started. I think Cal transferred to Clarion University in Pittsburgh. Um, but Cal's been a giant in this game for a long time. He and I and Tom Izzo, all those guys, we look forward to seeing each other in the summers and sitting down and talking. And um, I get a lot of phone calls from Cal over the course of a year about any number of things. But Cal's Cal, but he's also a great voice for our game. He wants what's best for the game. Um, and when you coach at visibility schools, you can draw a lot of attention, different opinions. But I've always admired Cal because he's done it his way, and he's been unbelievable successful everywhere he's been, which is the hallmark of a great coach.
Thank you, Joseph. We'll go to Greg Bailey with KTRK TV. Greg, please go ahead.
Kelvin, good morning. I believe you said in the past that you appreciate Cal's coaching, where perhaps people get lost in just the recruiting aspect. What do you think he does well from a coaching aspect to have that level of success?
Everything. First of all, his teams play really hard. They play well together. Cal does a great job of putting his teams together, um, and he makes them fit. Um, you look at his team this year, um, he's got three elite. He's got really good post guys. The Brazil kid. It's not an accident that he's having his best year this year. Um, Cal empowers guys like that to be the best version of themselves, and he knows how to do it. People on the outside can only guess or offer opinions, but he knows how to do it. Um, Taking a kid like Acuff and the Thomas kid and making them fit. Um, that speaks to Cal's ability to get kids to be connected. That's not easy to do. But his we lost to Kentucky. I can't remember the year. Tyler Hero hit a big three in transition. If he misses that shot, we probably have a good chance to win. But all game long, it was just an unbelievable game. We went up, they went up, then it came down right to the end, and Cal's team played hard and stayed connected the entire game. But that's not a surprise. All his teams do. For all of us, some years are better than others. You're not going to be a great team every single year, but you can coach the team to the best of your ability and get your team to play the best of their ability. And a lot of times that's not quite good enough, but sometimes that's all you can do. And Cal does a great job of that every year.
Thank you, Greg. We'll go to Stephen Bagel, please. Stephen, go ahead. Apologies if I mispronounced your last name there.
No problem. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. So you mentioned the big man that Calipari has on the Arkansas team. How do you expect, Chris Sak to play a role not only in this game, but how do you expect him to expand his game moving into conference play?
I think Chris is on a good trajectory right now. He's really improved in areas. He's actually improved in areas he hasn't really shown in the games yet, which is typical for freshmen. Um, um, he's playing a position that's really is, has never played. But if we're going to put our best players on the floor and for them to be able to connect, we have to play JoJo Tugler and him together. So he draws the straight, the short straw, and has to go guard the other teams. A lot of times, the best player is the four-man, and I think that's the hardest position on the team to define what the four-man is. Brazil is about as close to a natural four-man as you can find because he can stretch the floor and shoot threes. He's a dominant rebounder, really good inside, plays hard. Um, so this will be a really, really difficult matchup for Chris because he's 18 years old. He's a youngster. He might be 19 now, I'm not sure. And Cal's got all those older guys that's been through so many wars in Pringle, um, Brazil, and then I've been really impressed. He doesn't play a lot, but his young kid gets a lot done. He's got great size and great feel, good hands, excellent offensive rebounder. So this will be a tough matchup for Chris.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Stephen. We'll go to William Hathaway from Local Talk Newark. William, please go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how you doing today, man?
Good. Good.
I wanted to know, you coming into Newark, New Jersey, playing at the Prudential Center in the annual Never Forget Classic. How do you feel about that? And also, what is your expectation of this game against one of the great coaches, along with yourself, Calipari?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, William, about the Never Forget game. I think it was 2005, 2006. I went on a USO tour with some coaches over to the Middle East. And while I was over there, one of the soldiers gave me a bolt on a plaque with an inscription that came from the towers. And I have it displayed in my display case here in my office, and I have a lot of neat things in there. But that's one of the things that I have displayed. But it's a reminder to never forget. and just being over there with our troops. In the cafeteria, of course, everything's an acronym, so they call it a DFAC, a dining facility. And on one of those walls, it had graphic pictures of what happened that day with the caption up above that said never forget. So thank you for mentioning that. And then you asked me about Cal.
Yes. How do you
Okay.
feel coming into the Prudential Center and playing against him, two legendary coaches?
Um, well, there's one for sure in Cal, but I've actually coached at the Prudential Center once when I was with the Milwaukee Bucks. We played the Nets there in the Prudential Center one year, um, around '09, '10, something like that. Um, but anytime you're going up against a Hall of Fame coach like Calipari, it always adds a little more juice because you know how well prepared and how well his team's going to play. So, for us, it's a opportunity to kind of see where we're at. Um, we played Auburn and Syracuse, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Florida State. Um, but I think when we're playing Arkansas, I think this will be the best team we've played because of when we've played them. You know, I saw Tennessee beat Louisville last night. Tennessee's gotten a lot better since they played us, and I think we've gotten a lot better too. But um, you know, I've always admired Cal because he's not afraid to play anybody anytime. And I actually think Cal was the one that called me about this game. At first, it was going to be in Madison Square Garden, and he said, "You want to play?" I said, "Yeah, let's play." And then he said, "Well, let me get hold of CBS and I'll call you right back." So he called me right back and said, "It's a go." I said, "Okay, talk to you later." I think that's about how it went. Um, then he called me back and said, "I think they're going to move us to the um, Barclays Center." And then when they told me it was going to be at the Prudential Center, I said, "It's a great facility too. It's a great area. A lot of great teams, great players come out of that part of New Jersey. So it's an honor for us to go. Um, the fact that it's the never forget game gives it added meaning for me, and we'll look forward to competing."
Thank you, William. We'll go to Spencer Ostroff, please. Spencer, please go ahead.
Hi, Coach. Um,
Hey, Spencer.
so obviously you talked about Brazil a bit. You talked about Auff. Arkansas, they have a bunch of scoring threats. Is there anything in your game plan that you're telling your kids about limiting the strengths or potentially exploiting weaknesses with this team?
Well, if it was, I wouldn't tell you. I mean, you want me to give you what we're telling them?
No, not exactly. More so just
Or you want me
they
just,
showed
you
against
want me
Texas
just,
Tech. Oh, they're
yeah.
deep.
No, no. Well, obviously, we're not going to talk about that, but um, the Arkansas doesn't have a lot of weaknesses because of the way they're shooting the ball from the outside, their athleticism, and you know, being able to bring when you're able to bring Malik Thomas and Billy Richmond off the bench with Ewing, that speaks volumes about your talent level because all three of those guys would start for most power conference teams. Um, all three of them, not just one or two, all three. Um, but they're the guy that's probably playing the best is probably Brazil, but their most valuable player, no question, is Auff. But having Knox and Richmond and Ewing and Thomas and I'm missing him, Wagner. They've got so many scoring threats that um, you've got to be on your toes no matter who's coming in or who's coming out. They're always going to have major scoring threats on the floor together, which is what makes them so unique. I haven't played we haven't played. I haven't seen all the SEC teams. I know they've got some great ones. Vanderbilt, I think, is really good. Arkansas is really good, but I don't think there's anybody in the SEC any better than Arkansas this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Spencer. We'll go back to Joseph Duarte, please. Go ahead, Joseph.
Kelvin, was that Middle East trip the one where you mentioned to me about the you had to sort of blend in what you wore because just
Yeah,
so they didn't think you were dignitaries or anything like that?
yeah. There was we went 2 consecutive years. One of the years was Katrina because while we were over there, it hit, and all the we were in Kuwait, outside of Kuwait, at this camp called Camp Arif, and the phone, there was such a huge volume as you can imagine of people trying to get a hold of their families and loved ones back in that Gulf area, Mississippi and New Orleans, that we couldn't make a call for maybe 2 days because of what was going on. But that that was an amazing trip. I think the first trip was I think my roommate was Jay Billis that first year, but we stayed in the second year we stayed in the barracks right with the troops, and that's when we had to all wear the same assigned military gear for that day, or dress for that day, which was usually fatigues and boots and all that stuff.
Right. Where I was going with the Kelvin is that these games that you play, not just you, but just anywhere, sometimes there's a sponsorship to it or something. But the fact that it's the never forget,
Yeah.
people that live in this country that know where they were that day or what was going on. Does that sort of make it more to be a part of it just because it's towards that event and the remembrance of it?
Yes, that was in 2001. So that summer, I was coaching on that USA team, and we were in Indianapolis playing where the Pacers play. And I just remember all the little miniature American flags that was flying all over that arena. And George Karl was the head coach. Myself, Greg Popovich, and Mike Montgomery were the assistants. And just everywhere you go, it was a common refrain of USA, USA, USA. And the height of patriotism in our country was built around 9/11. Um, and for a long time, it was right in the front of all our thought process. But the one thing I remember about that is never forget, and that's why this is so poignant, is we're playing a game where the right across the river or the bridge from the Twin Towers and what happened that day. And this is a good reminder, especially this time of the year, to be thankful for what we have. Have a season of gratitude for where we are and what we have, and appreciate it. And a reminder not to forget what happened, especially all the people that lost their lives.
Thank you, Joseph. We'll go back to Chris Baldwin, please. Chris, go ahead.
Calvin, Cal has said you guys talk a lot about making the game better for your sons in coaching. What I mean, how much does that drive you, and what trying to improve the game maybe from where it is now?
You talking about John?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think that's all the older coaches. I have such an appreciation for the generation of coaches that I looked up to when I was a young coach. Um, John Thompson at Georgetown, John Chaney at Temple, Coach Dean Smith, Coach Knight, uh, um, um, you know, there's so many of those guys that you looked up to, and they were our role models, whether they knew it or not, because of the way they went about their business and how they shaped the lives of the kids that they recruited and coached, the chances that they gave kids,
Yeah, thank you.
and their greatness. Just the greatness that they had. I wasn't coaching when Coach Wooden retired, but I remember watching his UCLA teams. Um, there were so many great coaches in the East. Jim Boeheim and Coach Gavitt at um, Providence. So many of the Division II coaches that are now Division I at the HBCU schools, the CIAA schools like Winston-Salem State and Norfolk and all those schools. Those were a lot of the coaches I looked up to, but they left this game in the best possible place. Um, and then it became each generation of coaches. Now my generation is probably a lot closer to being, our time is a lot closer to being over, but you want to do the best you can for the game. And I still think there's some things that we can do to help the game, especially through the rules committee and all the committees that we have. If we don't have a voice, we know somebody else that does, and being able to um, um, raise different views that I think this can make the game better. For instance, moving the ball up. Um, 2 minutes. It's not just the NBA rule. It's the FIBA rule. I always thought that the game would be better if we just adopted all the FIBA rules because they've modified and changed over the years. I remember when they had the what do you call the lines that went out. You still knock a ball off the rim. Things that we think is the craziest things ever. Once you get used to them, you realize that's great for the game. But being able to move the ball up in the last 2 minutes, um, things like that. Um, but also now with the transfer rule, the NIL, contracts, the way it's made it more difficult. But at the same time, there's no such thing that you can't. There's no such thing as a bad idea anymore. Because who would ever think that would be the way it is?
Let's see. Are there any more questions for Coach Sampson? Let's see here. William, do you have a question for Coach?
Yes, I do, Coach. I want to know your feelings about the NIL rule. Do you think since it has been instituted in college basketball, has it changed the game?
Absolutely, it's changed the game. Um, most people don't realize that NIL started so these student athletes could benefit off their name and their image and their likeness. And I think the original thought process is football players from these um, top schools in the country, all this money that these universities are selling their jerseys in the whether it's the bookstore or the team store or wherever, and the players were not getting any cut of that, nothing. And so they decided to do it, which I thought was the right thing to do. And I still am pro NIL because I do think the players deserve to get their share. Um, um, my biggest concern with NIL is not from the player's perspective, but how it's going to be monitored going forward. And sometimes, it's kind of like the dog chasing his tail. At some point, we need to be proactive and think ahead versus being reactive and having to react to, oh, nobody thought of this or nobody thought of that, which is difficult to do. It's difficult to think ahead because who would ever think we'd be where we are? But we're in the NIL space today. Um, I'm very supportive of the NIL for players because I think players deserve to be compensated for what they're doing, especially the way the TV contracts have magnified over the years. So, but I'm on the train, man. We're just riding this NIL train, and sometimes we get off the highway and take an exit, and we get run into. And you got to get back on the highway and go as long as you can without coming into contact with somebody. But I can't imagine what it's going to look like 5 years from now. Hopefully, we have something under control and something set up for these athletic departments to be able to function. Because I think the entity has created the most that has the most tension is athletic directors. I was talking to our athletic director the other day, Eddie Nunez, and we were talking about that. With the House settlement, NIL, it's becoming tougher and tougher. But okay, it's coming tougher and tougher. Deal with it.
We have time for two more questions. First question will go to Chris Baldwin, please. Go ahead, Chris.
Kelvin, have you seen Chase get better at rebounding, and how have you sort of seen him adjust to playing that, four on a reserve role?
Absolutely, he's gotten better. I think indirectly his struggles with shooting has helped his rebounding, because one of the things I've always told all of our kids is that when you lose yourself in the hard parts of the game, the defense and the rebounding and the hurting, anything that's hard, be really good in those areas, the areas that you look at as fun or things that you like. Those things you'll have a better appreciation for them. They'll be easier for you. So I think as Chase has struggled to shoot the ball early in the year, it's caused him to focus more on the other parts of his game. And now when his shooting comes around and he starts making more shots, he becomes more diverse. You're not just a shooter anymore. Now you're a rebounder. You're an effort guy. You impact winning in ways other than just making shots.
Our last question, we'll go back to Spencer Ostroff, please. Spencer, please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. So Kingston Flemings has had a great start to the year, whether that's on offense, distributing the ball, or racking up steals on defense. With him being only 18 years old still, what has impressed you most about his great start to the year?
His maturity. He comes from a great family. Sometimes we want to give the coaches way too much credit for some of these kids' growth. I would give the credit for Kingston's growth to his family, especially his mother Shayla and his father D. Shayla's a nurse, D's a fireman, very blue collar family. He just had a younger sister that just signed a letter of intent with Duke. He's got other sisters that's going to do the same thing with somebody one day. But that's the environment he was raised in. So a lot of times kids come from environments where it's defined by their limitations. And sometimes we have kids that come from environments that are defined by their ambition. Well, the latter is true for Kingston. But it's not really a surprise for me or Kellen was the point person. Kellen did an awesome job recruiting him, and I don't think it's a surprise necessarily for us because we've been heavily involved with this kid for a couple years now. But we could see his modesty. I just remember he did not make the McDonald's All-American game, and his first response was, well, I probably didn't play well enough in these two or three events. So that's probably why I didn't make it. He never pointed the finger. He never blamed anybody. He never, and I think he actually changed the subject. So I just think that speaks to his maturity and the way he was raised.